Hi, I'm Sara McMahon, and this is my show. From near to far, going to see it all. From downtown to out of town. From city parks to national forest. From farmland to farm animals. I grew up here, so let's go. They're on their town. Welcome to Saratown, episode 26. This is our 4th of July episode. Thank you to all of our veterans, our young veterans, our old veterans, for making our country free. This is our 4th of July episode. I'm here with Mike Smith, and he's going to tell us about the Marsh Airfield Museum. So tell us about it. How did it get started?
Well, Sarah, it got started over on the main base in 1979 by volunteers and active duty people. They had many artifacts over there, and we were given a building to put them in. However, we kept gathering more artifacts, including airplanes, and we had nowhere to put them. So eventually in 1993, we were moved over here. We developed our hangar. Now we have 80 aircraft and approximately 30,000 artifacts, most of them on display in various locations at the museum. We have everything from fighters to bombers to cargo planes to tankers to reconnaissance aircraft to rescue airplanes, as well as trainers.
Cool! What are some things we're going to see today?
Well, when you go inside the museum, we'll take you around to all the different venues that we have there, including the kids area and mission control, and talk about the SR-71, Blackbird, and then go into our artifacts exhibit hall.
Oh! How many visitors do you get a year?
We average anywhere from about 35 to 65,000 at the museum.
Cool! What kind of things do you do for veterans and families?
Well, for veterans, we have the Blue Star program where the veterans get in with their families free of charge.
Wow! What's the biggest and the fastest planes you have here?
Well, the biggest airplane is our B-52.
Wow!
It's an 8-engine bomber that's been around since 1955. The fastest plane we have is inside our museum, and that's our SR-71 Blackbird.
Wow! How fast does it go?
The SR-71 travels over 2,000 miles an hour.
Wow!
It does hold the speed record for over 2,160 miles an hour. And the one we have actually did reconnaissance missions both in Europe as well as in the Pacific during the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm. How many people did it take to keep the museum running?
That's a good question, but we have about 140 volunteers that come out at various times during the week to keep it running, to clean the airplanes, to fix them, and to talk to people like you.
Wow! What about your military service?
Well, I spent 25 years in the Air Force, mainly as a radar controller. Served in many countries. And my last tour of duty was right here at March Field.
Cool! Thank you, Mike. Let's go see the museum.
Okay.
I'm here with Jeff Houlihan, and he's about to tell us about the early days of flight. So tell us about the early days of flight, Jeff Houlihan.
Flying has been around for many, 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 many centuries, for a very long time. So the first powered flight happened about 1902, though, with the Wright brothers.
I know that. I read that somewhere. Tell us a little bit about biplane.
Okay, biplanes means that it has two wings. See the top section here? And the bottom section are both wings. And they make the airplane lift up much higher and faster.
That's cool.
A biplane like this one, a Newport, would do about 80 knots, which is just a little over 80 miles an hour.
And what are biplanes made of?
Mostly fabric and wood.
So when were these used?
They were used during the First World War, which was about 1918, all the way up through about the 1930s, when one-wing, single-wing airplanes came out.
That's cool. Why don't they use biplanes anymore? More technology?
Well, some things they do still use biplanes, but for most aircraft, the engines are strong enough and the wings are strong enough to be able to lift them. They don't need two wings.
How have the engine changed?
They've gone all the way from being as simple as a lawnmower engine on some of the early airplanes to jet engines and rocket engines on new aircraft now.
Cool.
This biplane is a Newport 11. It was built during the First World War. That's the design that you're seeing here. So back in 1917 is when this one would have been flown.
Wow.
It's called the Newport Baby, actually, because it's so small, it's like a baby airplane.
That's nicer than St. Dorf, isn't it?
I think so.
How is this one different than the Newport Baby?
This is a newer airplane. It was made in the 1930s. It's called a P6, and it has a metal fuselage, see, so it doesn't use fabric there, but the wings are still fabric.
Wow. How fast does it go?
This airplane goes faster than the Newport Baby. It would do about 140 knots.
Wow. What did you fly when you were in the Air Force?
Sometimes I flew on C-141s and sometimes E-3s, which are big four-engine airplanes. You were on a 141 earlier today. I flew in those when I was at the Air Force, too.
Have you ever flown a biplane?
No, they stopped using biplanes long before I was into flying.
Oh, were you just a little kid?
I was just a little kid.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jeff, for telling us about the early days of flight.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. We're here with Doug Berger at the KC-97 tanker aircraft. So, Doug, tell us about the plane.
Okay, this is a KC-97, and all aircraft, Air Force aircraft have letters in front. So it's A for attack, F for fighter, B for bomber. So a KC is a tanker. C stands for cargo, and K stands for tanker. So this is a cargo airplane that was converted to be an air refueling tanker.
Did you ever fly this plane or drive this plane?
No, I didn't fly the plane. I was what we call a boom operator.
What's a boom operator?
The boom operator is the guy that's in the back of the airplane, and he actually does the refueling of the other aircraft in the air.
Oh, is it like a pilot? Is the boom operator like a pilot?
Well, in a way, it's like a pilot because it is a flying boom. So you hook up the receiver and you give them gas. You gas them up in the sky.
Cool.
And I actually flew on these KC-97s for 4 years, from 1962 to 1966.
Did they use this in any movie like Operation Dumble Drop?
No. As far as I know, this is probably in some like Strategic Air Command, some of those old movies.
Oh.
Some Discovery Channel stuff.
Oh. Do you have any interesting stories about the plane?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Is originally this was a cross-Atlantic airliner, and when we go inside, you're going to see it's a double-deck plane. And when it was an airliner, the bottom part was used as a piano bar.
Cool.
Yeah, so, and then the Air Force converted it into a tanker.
Doug, may we please go inside the plane now?
Yes, you want to help me open the door?
Sure thing.
Well, let's do it.
How do you open it, Doug?
Okay, well, we have a handle here. We push this in, and there's a little trigger, and we pull this handle out, and the door comes down, and we can go in, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I want you to do when you go in is I want you to smell, because this airplane has a unique smell, and that smell is hydraulic fluid and JP4.
Oh,
So when I get on a
smells
plane,
weird.
it's going home. The green tanks here hold the fuel for the receiver, okay?
yeah. What's a receiver?
The receiver is the aircraft that gets the fuel from this plane. So we go in the air, then a receiver comes up behind us, which is another airplane. We hook him up, and then we take the fuel from these tanks, and we put that fuel in the receiver. It's called
Cool.
air refueling.
Let's go inside.
I'm right behind you. Now you got to go up this little ladder. Here's the handles you hold. And when you get up a little farther, there's some other red handles. I'm right behind you. That's good. Hold on there. Then look straight up. You see those red handles up there? Mm-hmm. After you go up another stair, and you can grab those.
Okay.
You're doing wonderful. All right. Well, one more, and then you get it. Yeah, that's the way. That's the way I'd have done it. You're in. Whew. Yeah. Let's go back here. If you go right around there, Sarah, you could get up in the pilot seat. Okay.
I'm not driving.
Well, don't start the engines.
Ow. I'm the pilot.
All right, you're the pilot, right? So if we crash land, you got to open this door, throw the rope out, and go down the rope. That's why we have the rope. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't think we got a crash landing scheduled today.
No. How many hours of training does it take to fly this?
About a year.
Wow, that's not long. Compared to like 15 years at school.
Well, they've already been through pilot training.
Does this plane still fly?
No, it doesn't fly anymore, and we don't start the engines or anything because the wires are old and we're afraid that we might burn the plane up.
Thank you, Doug.
Oh, you're welcome.
This is the body for the pilot.
And guess what, Sarah?
What?
That was a bucket. And if you use the bucket first, when we land, you had to take the bucket and clean it.
Ew.
Yeah. So you didn't want to do that. You want your derby?
Thank you.
I'm going to get us a little bit of air, okay?
Does that feel better, Sarah?
Not much. These tanks held fuel, and that fuel would go from this airplane to another airplane.
Cool.
Okay? So let's go in the back. This is where I worked, okay? And part of my jobs is I'd look out the window and make sure the engines were not burning up and things like that. So when I got ready to refuel, you want to get down there? I'll help you. Step down easy. Now step on the red. So there. Now you're the boom operator.
This is where Doug had to be to operate the boom.
Right. And the airplane, the receiver airplane would pull up behind you. You would hook them up and transfer the fuel. Okay, so when you're down there, you're the boom operator.
Did you have to lay down to do your job?
Yes, Sarah, we laid down and we refueled the planes. So you know what we tell everybody our job was?
What?
Our job was laying on our stomach, passing gas. Hey, good job. That's the way I'd have done it.
Because this plane also carried troops.
Yes, we used to go to Goose Bay, Labrador, and we would carry our support troops with us. So we would carry our people with us. And these were what we called troop seats of all things, right? Mm-hmm. So the troops would sit here and then we would go wherever we had to go. And they had seat belts and they were secure here.
Yeah.
And my job was, I was also the flight attendant. So I had to take care of the troops and passenger briefings and all of that.
Thank you, Doug, for the tour of the KC-97.
There's one other thing you have to do, Sarah.
What?
You gotta give me a hug. Right? All right, there.
It is hot in here. Was it hot when you had to fly it?
Not in the air. When you get up in the air, it's very cold. And in fact, we used heaters. So it's only hot like this till you get off the ground.
What wars did these fly in?
This was never flown in a war.
Oh.
It was in the Cold War.
Oh,
right?
Cold War.
But we never flew. We were on standby.
Oh.
So it never flew combat.
I see. Look at the boom.
So look up here, babe. That's where you were.
Oh my goodness.
You were looking out that window.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah?
That's awesome.
So look, so you were laying like this, right? Mm-hmm. So this thing comes down like that. Mm-hmm. Right? And it goes left and right and up and down and in and out. So the receiver, he comes up like this, right?
Yeah.
So you line it up and you extend it, and that boom goes into the receiver, and then you pump the fuel from this plane to that plane.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Doug had to fuel another plane while it was flying. Do you have anything else you want to share about this?
Yeah, I was scared one time.
Why?
I got married. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm still married to the same woman, so it couldn't have been too bad.
That's good. You're funny. The space race was an exciting time in American history, so Mike, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the space race, of course, was started at the end of World War II when we captured many of the German rockets and scientists, and from there we were trying to develop rockets. But eventually for space, it was the late 1950s when the Soviets first launched Sputnik. And after that, then it became trying to launch an astronaut into space.
Well, what's Sputnik?
Sputnik was an unmanned communication satellite that was put up by the Soviets, and all it did was send back a signal, okay?
Yeah. So, Mike, who was the first man in space?
Well, the first man in space was a Soviet astronaut named Yuri Gagarin, followed by Alan Shepard, the U.S. astronaut.
The first American in space was Alan Shepard.
And the first astronaut to orbit the Earth was John Glenn.
Tell us a little bit about those early missions.
Well, the early missions were called the Mercury and Gemini program, and basically it was designed to put a man up in orbit to determine whether they could survive up there, and they slowly went from one orbit around the Earth to many orbits. Following the Gemini and Mercury program, we went into the Apollo program, which was actually sending a rocket towards the moon and orbiting the moon before we actually landed on it.
Wow! Can you tell us about the first trip to the moon, Mike?
Well, the first trip to the moon was one of the early Apollo missions, and it basically did not land on the moon. Mission was to orbit the moon. Later on, they did send unmanned spacecraft to the moon. It wasn't until Apollo 11 that we actually first landed a man on the moon.
Neil Armstrong.
Very good.
Sarah, do you know what year that was?
1969.
Very good.
Tell us about women in space.
Well, women in space started with Sally Ride as being one of the first female astronauts to go up. And eventually there were several of them, including, unfortunately, those that were lost on the Challenger and then on the Columbia. But women have been going to space ever since then, and they are a part of the future programs that will be going to Mars.
Wow! What year?
That is not decided yet. We're hoping it's only going to be 20, 30 years down the road, but that is based on the development of certain spacecraft.
Cool! What kind of thing can you do on the moon? Like, can you drink soda there?
No, you can't. It's because of all the difference in pressure and all that. You would have to literally suck forever just to get the soda to come up because of the difference in pressure in that on the moon. But like when we went to the moon, guess what we brought back?
What?
Rocks. And do you know when they came back from the moon with the rocks, what they had to do? They had to clear customs.
Wow!
When they got to Hawaii, U.S. Customs, they said, well, did you bring anything back from a foreign country? And they said, yes, we brought back rocks from the moon. They had to declare it.
A foreign planet. Mike gonna show us mission control. What are we doing here?
Sarah, we call this mission control, and this is our flight center. And basically what we have here are simulators. And you can actually fly different airplanes. And what we do is we present them up on the screen here, and once the system downloads the information, then you can actually fly one of these airplanes. And we have everything from the space shuttle to various aircraft. Touch this control what happens to the control stick on the aircraft. So you're actually moving the airplane.
We're gonna fly a plane.
That's you flying a jet airplane. That's one of the Blue Angels. See yourself? Just watch this one. Now just turn it. And that's you controlling the aircraft. When you pull back, the airplane will climb. When you roll down, it'll go downward. And then if you want to roll it over upside down, there's how you do it. See, now you're flying a jet fighter called the F-18 Hornet.
This is really neat.
Okay, now don't go down too fast because you're going to crash in the ground. There's
It
to
looks
kind of
like
level
Nintendo.
out. Okay.
Do they train real pilots with stuff like this?
Well, they have simulators that are far better than this. This is just strictly for us amateurs that want to fly airplanes. But basic simulators are actual cockpits of the aircraft. Yeah.
Cool.
Now, these consoles you're sitting at, these were actually at the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral. And when they deactivated that facility, they were donated to us.
These consoles are used at a real mission control. The flying is really, really cool.
Okay, let's see you do a flip. Turn it over. Yeah, that's right. A little bit more. Now you roll. You're doing 2 of them. Okay, now stop. Now you're level. Now you're flying good. Okay? See how easy that is? That's very responsive, very responsive to your touch.
What aircraft was this?
This is the F-18 Super Hornet. This is the kind flown by the Blue Angels. Okay, you're going to crash if you keep going down. Pull back. There you go. You got to see the horizon to know that you're flying level.
Is that a real plane right here?
That's a real airplane we hear in the background.
I want to land. How do I land?
Okay, first you got to put your gear down. There's the letter G. Then watch your gear. No, don't hold it. You just touch it, let go, okay? Right now you're not near an airport, so you have to keep flying around for a long time to find the airport.
Okay, I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Mike, for showing us mission control video game.
You're welcome. High five.
We're here with the C-141 Starlifter, and we're here with Walter Fudd, and he's going to tell us about this plane. So, when did this plane invented?
This actual plane right here is from 1965, and it was the first jet cargo plane during the Vietnam War.
The first jet cargo plane in Vietnam War? Wow. Why is it called a Starlifter?
Okay, the Star is the company's brand name, Lockheed. They name a lot of their jets Star, so that's a company name. Lifter is short for airlift, which this plane does. It airlifts cargo and people.
Cool! What kind of cargo does it carry?
You can take cargo pallets and people, and also, because the doors open up in the back, you can drive vehicles on it, like trucks. However, it's pretty narrow, so you cannot take tanks.
Was this plane filmed in Operation Dumbo Drop?
No. In the movie, they used a C-130, not a C-141.
Oh.
Turboprop cargo plane.
That's cool. Do they still use these today?
No. About 12 years ago, they replaced this with a C-17, a much larger cargo plane.
Wow.
Actually based here at March, across the field, and you can see them right there.
Wow. Can we go on the plane now?
Absolutely. Follow me.
We're inside the cargo hold in the C-141. Why is there the red plaid thing?
These?
Net. Yeah, the red net.
These are called troop seats, and right now the cargo compartment is configured with about 100 seats, and they have seat belts, oxygen, and shoulder harnesses
1, 2,
for people
3,
to sit.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. That's too many.
So you can actually have people sitting in these seats while you load pallets in the middle of the cargo compartment.
Wow! How many thousands of pounds did you carry?
Okay, roughly in the B model, 70,000
Wow, 70,000.
pounds.
Wow! How many missions does this plane fly?
Well, it's hard to tell. This plane has flown in Vietnam War. It's flown in Desert Storm. And that was the last war it flew in. That's when the C-17 replaced it. So from 1965 up till about 12 years ago, it was in service. And when it was in service, it operated kind of like an airliner. It was always flying, and the crews rotated, but the plane was pretty much, other than maintenance, keep going.
Cool! What about your service, Walter?
Okay, I was a pilot in the Air Force.
Wow!
I was also an airline pilot. I retired from both, and I flew this exact plane all over the world. And I flew this for 10 years, this C-141, and I also flew the KC-135 air refueling jet tanker outside for 10 years. So air refueling was actually my expertise.
Now we're gonna go see the cockpit. What's a cockpit?
Flight deck. It's another, basically it's where the pilots fly the plane and other crew members sit. And in this particular cockpit, we have flight engineers, and I'll show you all that.
I want to sit in the pilot seat. This is a cockpit.
So what do you think?
It's cool.
Big, isn't it?
Does this plane fly?
Today? No. Actually, none of the planes here in the museum will ever fly again. The reason is the wires are getting brittle in this hot sun. The fluids are drained, moss grows in fuel tanks, and it would be really expensive to clean it up enough to fly it again.
What are some of these key buttons for?
Okay, up here, these are all your engine instruments. Remember, we have 4 jet engines under the wing, and we have to monitor how much thrust, like an RPM tachometer in your car. So that's what these are, and they're little bar graphs.
Cool.
These are the throttles, the gas pedals.
Awesome.
So there's 4 engines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, you want to see something cool? This is how jet engine works.
So this is the jet engine.
You see how they spin? And engine starters. This is how you start the engines. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the flaps, the spoiler panels on the wing, on top and underneath. These are all radios and navigation equipment. So this is a navigation computer.
Wow.
And we have radios in virtually every frequency band. We could literally talk around the world.
Yeah.
The overhead panel is all your light controls and your hydraulics for your flight controls. Lights, hydraulic pressure, anti-ice equipment, because your flight controls are controlled by hydraulic fluid, controlled by the yoke, and that's the steering column. These are your flight instruments. Tells you how high you are, how fast you're going, and an attitude reference, so when you can't see the horizon. You'll notice that the flight instruments are identical for both the pilot and the co-pilot.
So you can fly from either seat, you just can't taxi.
This little wheel moves the nose wheel.
That makes sense.
So if I want to make a 90-degree turn, it's tricky because there's a lot of airplane behind me, right? If I cut it...
no rear view mirrors either.
And you don't have any rear view mirrors. And you got to be careful with those long wings that you don't hit anything.
If we were going to take off, what would we do?
We would run an extensive checklist to make sure all these switches are in the correct position, in order, and the checklist, we read it, and then we place the switch in the right position. And in that panel over there is the flight engineer. He or she controls all the systems on the airplane. Fuel panel, the electrical panel, the air conditioning panel, and the auxiliary power unit, so that we have to coordinate on an interphone system between the flight engineer and the two pilots. This seat here is a Navigator. This seat was always empty because they did away with Navigators in the early 70s. So we didn't fly with a Navigator, and this seat was always extra. So if we had extra crew members, you could sit there.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, Walter. Fun?
You're welcome. Welcome, Sarah.
That's it. That is our 26th episode of Sarah Town. Happy 4th of July. Thanks to
Mike?
Jerry. Skip.
All right, and God bless America. Bye.